Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 17th and tonight's movie is Rear Window. This is a big one, arguably the biggest movie I'm going to be watching this month. This is a thriller movie from the 50s directed by Alfred Hitchcock starring James Stewart. Apparently he made two of them. I have very limited experience with Hitchcock. I've seen two of his movies and talked about both of them in the 2018 Horror Nights. I didn't care for Psycho, and I thought that Vertigo was good, but I haven't really felt the master of suspense thing that other people say. Rear Window is about a photojournalist who has an injury in his leg and is cooped up in his house, and to pass the time, he tries to people watch out of his window. Ignoring the questionable ethics of that, he sees what he believes to be a murder happen in the places across the street, and it's him trying to, get to the bottom of it or put a stop to something. Apparently, a majority of this movie, it takes place in this office, and it's like this special set that was built just for this movie. They have weather effects outside. In my Cube review, I talked about another movie that was essentially like a bottle episode made into a movie, and this is what I was referring to. James Stewart is a wonderful, likable, engaging actor. I loved him in Vertigo, and I can easily see him carrying pretty much the entire movie on his own. As for the rest of the movie, I don't know yet. Let me watch it and I'll get back to you. Alright, that was pretty good. I'm giving Rear Window an 8 out of 10. It was an engaging movie from start to finish. It's not much of a thriller, it's more of a mystery movie, but there was one moment towards the end where there was actually some very well done tension. One thing that I undersold in the intro to this video is the set. This entire movie takes place on one set. And that set isn't just the room that he's in, it's the room and everything else you can see out the window. You got a bunch of buildings, all with different floors and windows and rooms inside, and this big, outdoor thing. It's a humongous set. Probably the biggest I've ever seen in any movie. And it was all inside. Just the logistics of bringing this to life, it boggles my mind. Anyway, this movie kind of has two casts. The cast that are in the room and the cast that are out the window. The cast that are in the room is pretty small. It's 3 or 4 people. You got James Stewart's character named Jeff. You got his girlfriend. You got the nurse that has insurance sent over to take care of him while he was recovering. You got a friend of his who's a detective, and that's it. Outside, you got a whole neighborhood of people. Most of which are not really consequential to the story. A lot of the movie is just seeing these people live their lives, and I will admit, it's not the most exciting in those really long periods of inactivity, but it was a nice touch to see this little community get fleshed out. And while it is unethical to watch them to the extent that Jeff does in this movie, it's not malicious. He's forming little stories about them, seeing them live their lives. There's a point where he sees someone raise a toast and he toasts his own glass. He's just doing it because he's bored. Lee is a photographer for a magazine, and apparently he broke his leg taking a picture of a crashing race car. Kinda wish I could have seen that, but I'm sure this movie had a high enough budget already. Anyway, one night he witnesses one of his neighbors, Mr. Businessman, I think is what he starts out calling him because he doesn't know his name, acting very, very suspicious. There's one night where he goes outside multiple times in the pouring rain. He has these movers take this giant trunk out of his house. You see him cleaning a giant knife, and his wife just disappears. Things do not look good in the neighborhood. I did not like Jimmy Stewart's character as much as I was expecting to. He was actually kind of unlikable in a few scenes. I did like his girlfriend named Lisa, played by Grace Kelly. But what really drew me into this movie was the mystery of it all. It's like a murder mystery TV show or something, and you're and the characters got excited about it, talking with each other, like it wasn't something that actually potentially happened. There was this red herring moment where I think Lisa said, "What kind of people are we that were disappointed that man over there didn't kill his wife?" There is a healthy amount of self-awareness in this movie. The pacing of this movie is pretty slow, but despite that, it does remain engaging. I wanted to find out what that guy did to his wife. This was a little bit better than Vertigo, and the best Hitchcock movie I've seen. I mean, it's a classic for a reason. I'd say if you're interested, check it out. Now I want to talk about a few spoilers. One kind of interesting touch that they had in this movie, and I think that they only really do this once, is that they show a point where Jeff is asleep and the audience sees what's happening, but he doesn't. And you see Mr. Businessman leave his house with a woman. You don't see the woman, but you see him leave the house with a woman. And that does come up later. They're saying, like, well, he has an alibi. People were saying that he was leaving his house with his wife. But even so, a lot of things don't add up about this story. The wife was apparently going on vacation, but she left a lot of her things at the house, including her wedding ring. Also, there was one of the neighbors had like a little dog that she like lowered down to the ground floor on like a little basket. And at one night, she's like screaming her head off because someone cut the dog's throat, and everybody in the neighborhood stops what they're doing and looks out the window to see what the fuss is about, except Mr. Businessman. Eventually, it becomes clear that even if he didn't murder his wife, he definitely did something. Lisa and the nurse Stella go over there to try to look at something in the flower beds, but there's a point where Lisa decides to go off on her own and break into his apartment, and right about that moment, he comes back home. Jeff calls the police and they do arrive before anything really bad happens, but there's a point where Lisa shows him that she has the wedding ring on her finger. However, unfortunately, Mr. Businessman, whose name is Thorwald, sees that and now knows who's on to him. There was a moment right after that where everything is silent and suddenly there's noises of someone approaching the door, and that scene was done very well. Like, it was chilling. Because what is Jeff supposed to do? He's in a wheelchair, and a murderer is coming to get him through his front door, which is unlocked. But he does make it out of it. He does get, like, dropped out of his window and breaks both of his legs and ends the movie with 2 casts, but he is alive and the murderer is brought to justice. And the last scene of the movie is showing everybody in the neighborhood going back to normal, and you see that his girlfriend moved in with him and they're just living their lives. Is this one of the best movies ever made? I don't think so, but this is a pretty good movie. The production design in this movie is insane. This is the most impressive set I've ever seen in my life. It also has good mystery and, for one scene, good thrills. This is actually the oldest movie I have for this month, from 1954, but it stands the test of time. Very, very good movie. Alright, that's it for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow.